Sometimes words can be clumsy things. You try to express what you feel, what you've learned, what you hope others will see. And yet they stumble on the way out. We reach for the perfect phrase, the one that captures what's burning in our hearts, but language can feel too small for the size of what we're trying to say. Still, we must try. Because words are our bridge from thought to understanding, from intention to action. So today I'll do my best to use the English language as my tool, to build a bridge strong enough for both of us to walk across together. An old prophet once said, "Words are a lamp to your feet and a light for your path." That means language can do two things. It can help you see where you stand, and it can help you see where you're going. That's what I hope my words can do for you today, to help you look clearly at where you are and then to look forward, to see a brighter, bolder version of yourself waiting down the road. You see, communication is more than just talking. It's illumination. It's shining a light on what's possible. When someone speaks and another person truly listens, something magical happens. It's a dance, a meeting of two minds, a transfer of energy. A single phrase heard at the right time can make sense of years of confusion. But it works both ways. The listener grows, yes, but so does the speaker. Teaching clarifies the teacher. That's why I love what I do. Every time I speak, I learn a little more about what I believe, what I value, and how I can say it better next time. Now, expression, real expression, isn't just about putting words together. It's about sincerity. That's the secret ingredient that makes words come alive. Whether you're talking to one person or 1,000, sincerity is what makes the difference. It's the feeling that says, I mean this. When your words come from an honest place, people can feel it. They may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. But let's be clear. Sincerity alone doesn't make something true. You can be sincerely right or sincerely wrong. I've met people who are sincerely mistaken, and sincerity won't save them from the consequences of being wrong. So sincerity must always be coupled with truth. And truth comes from searching, studying, questioning, and being willing to admit when you don't know. The goal is not just to speak sincerely, but to speak sincerely about what's real. And here's where we start. Make words your allies. Fall in love with them. Treat them like friends you invite to dinner. Keep a dictionary close. When you come across a word you don't know, look it up. Don't let it slip by, because every new word you learn adds a new color to the palette of your communication. It gives you another way to describe what you feel, another way to connect, another way to persuade. And persuasion, my friends, is the art of life. I can tell you this, your words matter. They can bless, they can curse, they can heal, they can wound. Words can make a person feel 10 feet tall, or they can crush them down to nothing. They can ignite imagination or extinguish hope. So as we begin this journey together, I want you to remember that language is not just a convenience. It's a responsibility. Every word you choose is a tool for building or a weapon for breaking. So today, let's make a pact. Let's use our words to build. Let's use them to inspire, to teach, to lift, to encourage. Let's learn how to speak in a way that adds value to others and in turn adds value to ourselves. Because when your words rise, your world rises. And when you learn to shape your language with care and intention, life begins to shape itself in response. That's why I prayed this morning, not just for eloquence, but for alignment. That my words would carry meaning that helps someone, maybe you, take one more step toward the life you're meant to live. That's the power of words. And if we do this right, by the end of our time together, you won't just hear my words. You'll start hearing your own clearer, stronger, and more purposeful than ever before. You know, sincerity is one of those qualities that everybody respects. We all admire it when we see it. You can feel it when someone speaks from the heart. It moves you. It softens you. But here's the catch. Sincerity by itself is not enough. You can be sincerely wrong. You can be sincerely misinformed. You can be sincerely running in the wrong direction. So sincerity must always be partnered with truth. Truth gives sincerity its power. Without truth, sincerity is like a car without an engine. Plenty of motion, no progress. So our goal isn't just to speak sincerely, but to seek truth so deeply that our sincerity becomes a vessel for wisdom, not just emotion. Now, truth is not always comfortable. Sometimes truth asks us to unlearn things, to humble ourselves, to say, I was wrong about that. But that humility is what makes us teachable. It's what keeps the door open for growth. Truth isn't found by shouting louder. It's found by listening better. It's found by reading, by reflecting, by paying attention to the quiet voice that says, maybe there's another way. And if you combine that pursuit of truth with genuine sincerity, you'll discover that people begin to trust your words, because your words start to ring with authenticity. So let's talk about language as a tool for truth. Words are your instruments. If you want to play the music of life well, you must learn your instrument. That's why I always tell people, make friends with your dictionary. Every time you learn a new word, you widen your reach. A broader vocabulary gives you a broader world. Some people think a big vocabulary is just for scholars, but I'll tell you, it's for everyone who wants to communicate effectively. The more words you know, the more precisely you can express what's in your mind and heart. See, the problem with limited language is that it limits not just what you can say, but what you can think. If you don't have a word for something, it's hard to see it clearly. If you don't have the language for hope, it's hard to feel it. Words shape our reality. That's why the study of language isn't academic. It's spiritual. It's mental and emotional fitness. The dictionary may look like a book of definitions, but really it's a treasure chest of new ways to understand and express your life. Here's a simple idea that can change everything. Don't let words pass you by. When you hear one you don't know, stop and capture it. Write it down. Look it up. Then use it in a sentence. Make it yours. And soon you'll discover your world growing. Your thoughts will become sharper, your communication clearer, your relationships deeper. Because when you expand your vocabulary, you expand your possibilities. Now let's talk about the act of expression itself. Communication isn't about perfection. It's about connection. You don't have to sound like a professor to make an impact. What matters is that your words come from a place of care and intention. Practice putting feeling into your sentences. Practice shaping your words to match your meaning. Try new ways of saying old things until you find the one that fits like a glove. Expression is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And I'll tell you this, words are not meant to be hoarded. They're meant to be shared. They're the bridges that connect us to others. Every time you speak with honesty and clarity, you build a bridge. And when your words are backed by truth, that bridge becomes strong enough to carry understanding, compassion, and influence across it. Now let's make one distinction clear. Some people think eloquence is all about big words, but eloquence is really about precision. It's saying what you mean with just enough words, not too many. It's the ability to make the complicated simple and the simple unforgettable. That's why good communicators are good leaders. They bring light where others bring fog. They make people say, ah, now I see. So sincerity lights the heart, truth steadies the mind, and language gives both a voice. Put those three together, and you have one of the greatest forces on earth, the ability to move people, to lift them, to teach them, to awaken something powerful inside them. And that, my friends, is no small thing. Because one day, someone will remember your words. Not because they were fancy, but because they were honest, clear, and full of life. And when your words help someone find their way, you'll understand what the prophet meant when he said, words are a lamp to your feet and a light for your path. That's the gift of language. Use it well. Use it wisely. And never forget, when truth and sincerity walk together, your words can change the course of a life. You know, it's easy to send a gift. Anyone can pick up a bouquet or a box of chocolates. But I've learned that what people remember most isn't what you gave them. It's what you said when you gave it. Flowers are beautiful, yes, but they fade. Words endure. A bouquet might say, I remembered, but the right words can say you matter. So here's the lesson. Don't let flowers do all the talking. Pair them with something that lasts longer than petals. Write a card. Leave a note. Say something from the heart that only you could say. Because when the flowers are gone, the fragrance of your words remains. I tell people all the time, practice saying what you mean in a way that touches people. Make your words a little different. Don't settle for happy birthday or congratulations. Say, I'm proud of who you're becoming. Say, you've inspired me more than you know. It doesn't have to be poetic, it just has to be personal. The power is not in the perfection. It's in the sincerity. People can feel it when you mean it. And when your words carry that kind of honesty, they plant roots in someone's heart. Communication is an art, and every artist must practice. Try expressing yourself in fresh ways. Look for stories, illustrations, or examples that make people feel what you're saying. Paint pictures with your words. When you talk about success, don't just describe it. Let people see it. Let them feel it. If you tell a story about failure, don't just explain it. Recreate it so they can stand in your shoes. Words can be paintbrushes and your message can be a canvas. If you work at it, you can turn even a simple conversation into something memorable. And here's a good reminder. Language is a skill you can sharpen every day. You can practice it when you're giving a toast at dinner or when you're comforting a friend. You can practice it when you write a letter, lead a meeting, or tuck your children into bed. Every situation is an opportunity to refine your ability to express. Because great communicators aren't born, they're built. They pay attention to the moments that matter. They listen, they study. They learn what connects. I remember telling an audience once, don't rely on your gifts to carry your message. Develop your craft. You see, the difference between a person who speaks and a person who moves people isn't talent. It's effort. The one who moves people has practiced. They've taken time to find better ways of saying what everyone else takes for granted. They've learned that language is more than words. It's emotion, rhythm, sincerity, and timing all working together. Now, some people say, I'm just not good with words. But that's not a life sentence. It's an opportunity. You can get better at this. You can study the people who inspire you and notice how they say things. You can learn from your own experiences. What worked, what didn't. You can pick up a book of poetry or listen to great speeches and let those rhythms shape your own. Because language is a muscle. The more you stretch it, the more powerful it becomes. And don't forget, words are not just for others. They're also for you. When you learn to express yourself clearly, you start to understand yourself more deeply. You start to see your own thoughts take shape. You become more grounded, more confident, more aware. Self-expression is self-discovery. Every time you write something down or speak something out, you're telling the world and reminding yourself who you are. So when you speak, speak from your heart. When you write, write with intention. Don't just say what comes to mind. Say what's worth remembering. Practice until you can express the depth of what you feel without stumbling over it. And above all, mean what you say. Because words without heart are noise. But words with heart, those are music. If you take this seriously, if you make it your mission to express yourself in ways that are thoughtful and true, you'll begin to notice something extraordinary. People will lean in when you speak. They'll quote you later. They'll write down your words, not because you're trying to impress them, but because your sincerity connected with their humanity. That's how influence is built, not by talking louder, but by speaking truer. So the next time you send flowers, remember, let the card carry your heart. Let the words do the lasting work. Speak from the depth of who you are, and you'll never have to worry about being forgotten. Because the right words, spoken with heart, become timeless. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is the expansion of your own vocabulary. Because words, my friends, are more than sounds. They're tools of thought. You can't think deeply without the words to describe what you're thinking. The limits of your vocabulary often become the limits of your world. You see, if you only know a few colors, your painting will be plain. But if you learn more shades, more tones, your canvas starts to come alive. That's what happens when you enrich your language. You expand your mental palette, you see more, you feel more, and you understand more. So if you want to enrich your life, enrich your language. Now, building vocabulary isn't just about memorizing definitions. It's about capturing meaning. When you come across a word you don't know, don't skip it. Look it up, write it down, use it in a sentence. Let it sink in. That's how it becomes yours. And once a word becomes yours, it becomes a bridge between what you understand and what you can communicate. Some people say, well, I just can't explain what I feel. And I tell them that's not because you can't feel. It's because you don't yet have the words. Feelings need vocabulary to find expression. Once you give language to what you feel, you give power to what you can change. But vocabulary isn't just for communication. It's for thinking. It sharpens your insight. It helps you recognize patterns, solutions, and opportunities that others might miss. Let me tell you something. Observing the world with your eyes is called sight, but understanding it with your mind. That's called insight. And insight often comes from having the right words to connect the dots. When you expand your vocabulary, you're building pathways for clearer thinking. You start seeing cause and effect more precisely. You start predicting outcomes more intelligently. And that, my friends, is what separates people who react from people who lead. You might be thinking, Jim, I don't have time to study words. But here's the truth. You don't need hours a day. You just need consistency. Pick up a good book, a dictionary, or even a journal. Circle the words that stand out to you. And every time you add one to your vocabulary, realize that you're adding one to your arsenal. Because when life presents challenges, words become your weapons. The person who can think clearly and express clearly will always find a way through confusion. And let me warn you, don't be lazy in language. It's one of the greatest mistakes you can make. Lazy language leads to lazy thinking. Lazy thinking leads to lazy action. And lazy action leads to poor results. If you want to shape a successful career, if you want to build influence, if you want to help others grow, start by mastering the gift of language. The better you speak, the better you lead. The better you write, the better you think. And the better you think, the better you live. Language gives you the power to persuade, to teach, to heal, and to guide. It's the foundation of leadership. You can't lead people without words. You can't inspire a team without vision. And you can't communicate vision without vocabulary. That's why I encourage you to be a lifelong student of words. Don't treat them casually. Fall in love with them. Study them. Play with them. Let them become instruments in your hands, tools for painting possibilities and shaping futures. And here's a beautiful thing. When you expand your vocabulary, you expand your imagination. You begin to connect what you see with what you feel, and what you feel with what you can become. You start to describe not only the world as it is, but the world as it could be. That's the power of a developed mind. The person who can express possibility is the person who can inspire it in themselves and in others. So don't underestimate this skill. It's not about sounding smart. It's about becoming clear. It's about learning to express what matters most in a way that lifts others higher. Because once you can put your dreams, your plans, your beliefs into words, you make them real. And once your words have life, your world starts to follow. So take this challenge. Begin today to refine your speech. Build your vocabulary. Read things that stretch your understanding. Write things that clarify your thinking. And listen to those who speak with precision. Because every new word you learn is another window into a larger world. And the more windows you open, the more light you let in. Now let's talk about the three great uses of language: training, teaching, and inspiring. Each one has its own rhythm, its own rewards, and its own purpose. The first one, training, is about the hands. It's showing someone how to do something, giving them the mechanics, the steps, the system. Training is practical, immediate, and measurable. It's what builds competence. If you train someone well, they can repeat what you do. And the better you train, the faster they grow. So whether you're leading a team, running a business, or raising children, become a great trainer. Show people how to do it right. Not just by telling them, but by walking them through the process until their confidence grows. Training, when done with patience and precision, can be one of the most profitable skills you'll ever learn. It can build a fortune. Why? Because the world always rewards people who can duplicate success. If you can teach others how to perform with excellence, you multiply your own value. You move from being a doer to being a builder of doers. And that's a whole different level of influence. Training is the foundation of leadership. It turns one man's talent into a team's legacy. So never take it lightly. Practice explaining things clearly. Refine your methods. Simplify your message until even a child could understand it. That's mastery. Now, the second use of language is teaching. Teaching goes beyond the hands. It touches the heart and the head. It's not just about how, it's about why. Teaching builds understanding, not just repetition. It shapes beliefs, habits, and values. When you teach someone how to think, you give them the tools to solve problems on their own. You help them grow from dependence to independence. And that's one of the greatest gifts you can give another human being. Teaching, my friends, is an art. It's the ability to take truth and wrap it in a story. It's making the complex simple and the simple powerful. It's guiding people from confusion to clarity, from frustration to understanding. A great teacher doesn't just transfer information. He transfers transformation. He changes how people see themselves, their work, and their world. And when you learn how to do that, through your tone, your timing, and your stories, you become unforgettable. You can teach in a classroom, yes, but you can also teach at the dinner table, in a business meeting, or in a quiet conversation with a friend. Every moment of influence is an opportunity to teach. And the best teachers I've found are always learning. They read, they listen, they observe, and then they share what they've discovered in ways that touch people deeply. They know that what you give away multiplies. So never stop teaching. Because in teaching others, you teach yourself twice. Now the third, and most powerful, use of language is inspiring. Inspiration is what lights the fire of progress. Training builds skill, teaching builds understanding, but inspiration builds belief. It's the spark that turns good ideas into bold action. To inspire means to breathe life into. And when you speak with the intention to inspire, your words become life-giving. You help people see a better version of themselves. You give them faith that they can rise above their current circumstances. You remind them that the future is still wide open, that tomorrow can be brighter than today. But let me be clear. Inspiration isn't flattery. It's not about making people feel comfortable. It's about helping them grow. It's not saying you're fine where you are, but rather you're capable of so much more. It's showing people the gap between who they are and who they could be, and then giving them hope that they can bridge that gap. That's the real power of communication. And you can start anywhere. With your children, your team, your church, or your friends. When someone makes a mistake, don't just point it out. Use your words to help them see beyond it. Don't leave them stuck in guilt. Lead them toward growth. Paint a picture of who they could become if they learn from this moment. That's the kind of communication that builds people instead of breaking them. See, in sacred writings, it says, faith comes by hearing good words. And that's true. Words shape belief. When your words are seasoned with encouragement and truth, they plant seeds of faith in others. Faith in themselves, faith in the process, faith in the possibilities ahead. That's why you must learn to use your words not just to correct, but to create. Not just to instruct, but to inspire. Because people don't just remember what you said. They remember how your words made them see themselves. So make it your goal to master all three. Train the hands, teach the mind, and inspire the heart. Because when you do, you won't just be communicating. You'll be transforming. You'll be using the gift of language the way it was meant to be used. To build, to bless, and to bring out the best in others. Now, let's talk about something that gives real power to language. emotion. Words by themselves are like sparks, but emotion is the fire that gives them heat and light. Without emotion, even the finest words fall flat. And yet, too much emotion can scorch your message and overwhelm your audience. The art of communication is learning how to balance those two. How to deliver words with enough feeling to move people, but not so much that it overshadows the meaning. When you learn that balance, your words gain a new kind of authority. They stop sounding rehearsed and start sounding real. I often compare emotion and words to a pin and an iron bar. A word by itself might sting, like a pin tossed across the room. It might make a tiny mark. But if you attach that same pin to the end of a long iron bar and you swing it with conviction, it suddenly has enormous power. The iron bar is emotion. It gives force, direction, and impact to the tiny pin of a word. That's why the same sentence can sound lifeless from one person and electrifying from another. It's the energy behind it. But here's the caution. Power must be guided by wisdom. If you swing that bar recklessly, you'll break more than you build. Emotion, when undisciplined, can destroy what it was meant to inspire. You see, emotion is the color of communication. It gives your words texture, warmth, and resonance. But emotion must be measured. Controlled intensity, not wild passion. That's what makes your communication magnetic instead of messy. If you come on too strong about small matters, you'll sound exaggerated. If you come on too weak about big matters, you'll sound indifferent. It's all about balance. Know when to lean in and when to hold back. Know when to whisper and when to roar. The right emotion at the right moment can turn an ordinary sentence into a life-changing revelation. Let me give you an example. When you speak to a child and they've done something wrong, you don't need to explode to make your point. It's too much force, and they'll only hear the anger, not the lesson. But if you speak firmly, clearly, with a touch of compassion, they'll hear both correction and care. And that combination teaches far more than volume ever will. It's the same with adults. People respond not to how loud you are, but to how real you are. The strongest communicators are the ones who match emotion to purpose, not just emotion to mood. Emotion also gives your message memory. People forget what you said, but they never forget how you made them feel. So make sure your feelings work for your message, not against it. If you want to inspire, infuse warmth and conviction. If you want to persuade, mix logic with empathy. If you want to teach, let your passion for truth shine through your tone. But don't perform your emotions. Live them. Feel them genuinely. Because audiences can tell the difference between real and rehearsed. Real emotion connects. Fake emotion repels. And remember, there's a rhythm to good communication. An ebb and flow between energy and calm. You can't keep the same intensity all the time or you'll exhaust your listeners. Think of it like music. Music isn't just notes. It's pauses, silence, and shifts in volume. Your voice should work the same way. When you build intensity and then soften, people lean in. When you speak with strength and then drop to a quiet tone, your words echo longer. Emotion isn't just felt, it's paced. There's another lesson here. The art of timing. Some of your best points are lost because they're delivered at the wrong emotional moment. Sometimes the person you're speaking to isn't ready to receive what you're saying. That's where emotional intelligence comes in. Read the room. Feel the air. Ask yourself, is this the moment to push or the moment to pause? The wise communicator knows that when emotion meets timing, transformation happens. And here's something I've learned through the years. The emotion you control builds credibility. The emotion you lose destroys it. People trust the speaker who can stay composed under pressure, not the one who unravels in passion. So be emotional, yes, but let your emotions serve your message, not sabotage it. And the greatest communicators. Those who've shaped nations, changed hearts, and built movements. Understood this. They weren't afraid to feel deeply, but they were disciplined enough to channel it. They knew how to raise their voices without losing their reason. And that's what gave their words weight. It wasn't just what they said. It was how they said it. and when they said it. So work on your balance. Practice emotion as an instrument, not as an outburst. Let your words carry both logic and feeling, both strength and grace. Because when emotion and reason walk hand in hand, your language becomes more than communication. It becomes transformation. Now, let's talk about one of the rarest and most powerful communication skills of all. Reading your audience. Whether it's one person across the table or 1,000 faces in a room, the ability to see and feel how your message is landing in real time is a mark of mastery. You see, great communicators don't just deliver words. They receive signals. They don't just speak. They listen, they watch, they adjust. The conversation is alive, even when only one person is talking. And if you learn to read those subtle cues, you'll know when to drive your point home and when to pause, when to turn up the energy, and when to draw it down. When I first began speaking, I made a common rookie mistake. I buried my head in my notes. I was too focused on what I wanted to say to notice what people were feeling. But over time, I learned to look up, to make eye contact, to read the expressions, the posture, the rhythm of the room. Sometimes you'll see folded arms and furrowed brows. That means resistance. Sometimes you'll notice leaning forward and nodding. That's engagement. Both are feedback. Both tell you something. The art is in how you respond. If you sense resistance, don't bulldoze through it. Pivot, soften, ask a question, tell a story. If you sense interest, lean in, amplify the moment. Communication is not a script. It's a dance. And this applies everywhere, not just from a stage. When you talk to your children, your spouse, your employees, or your customers, pay attention to their body language. Words tell you what people say. Expression tells you what people mean. The eyes, the tone, the pauses, they all reveal more than the sentences themselves. A good communicator doesn't just hear sound. He hears silence. He knows when something left unsaid is louder than what was spoken. There are three main ways to read your audience. What you see, what you hear, and what you feel. What you see is body language. The arms crossed, the head tilted, the shifting in a chair. What you hear is tone, inflection, the rhythm of their words. But what you feel, that's intuition. That's the invisible pulse of connection. Some people call it sensitivity. I call it emotional radar. It's what helps you know when to ease off or push forward. Women, I've noticed, often have this radar more naturally. They can sense tension or openness without needing words. But all of us can develop it through awareness and humility. And as you read your audience, remember this golden rule. Communication is never about you. It's always about them. The best communicators don't aim to impress. They aim to connect. They don't speak to show what they know. They speak to reveal what others can become. So adjust your delivery to meet the listener where they are. If they're skeptical, use logic. If they're weary, use encouragement. If they're inspired, give them direction. Communication isn't about giving the same message to everyone. It's about giving the right message in the right way to the right person. Now let's add another tool to your kit, language framing. When you say you should, people often feel accused. But when you say we should, people feel invited. One isolates, the other unites. So when you want to influence someone, especially a child or a team member, shift from direction to collaboration. Instead of saying, you need to work harder, try, we can do a little better, can't we? That one word, we, changes everything. It softens resistance and turns correction into cooperation. It transforms instruction into inspiration. This same principle applies in persuasion. When people feel attacked, they defend. When they feel understood, they open. So choose your phrasing wisely. Great communicators don't win arguments. They win understanding. They don't dominate. They align. And that's how they move people, not by force, but by influence. Another secret to great communication is self-awareness. As you're reading others, learn to read yourself. Check your emotional temperature. Are you pushing too hard? Are you over-explaining Are you bringing too much heat or too little heart? Sometimes the best move is not to say more, but to say better. Slow down. Breathe, let silence do part of the work. Because silence, when used intentionally, gives weight to words. It creates anticipation. It invites reflection. And above all, keep refining the gift of language. Don't take it for granted. Pray for it, practice it, polish it. Because language is the tool that shapes destiny. It's how leaders lead, how parents guide, how lovers connect, how mentors lift. It's the thread that weaves thought into action, belief into behavior, and vision into reality. Don't let your language grow stale. Feed it with fresh ideas, nourish it with reading, challenge it with conversations that stretch you. And as you do, your words will begin to glow. They'll carry weight, warmth, and wisdom. You'll find that people lean in when you speak, not because you're loud, but because your words land. They have meaning, and that meaning has power. And that, my friends, is the essence of communication mastery. Reading your audience, refining your words, balancing your emotions, and speaking from sincerity. Because when truth and care meet in your voice, your message stops being just information. It becomes transformation.